President, I ask unanimous consent to speak before the vote.
Is there objection? Without objection.
Thank you. I rise today to express my outrage with President Trump's decision to withdraw U.S. troops from Northeast Syria. This decision is dangerous, it's premature, and it's wholly inconsistent with what have been the facts on the ground in Syria and the advice from everyone from our diplomats to our military advisors. In just 1 week, President Trump has managed to undo 5 years of hard-fought stability in Northeast Syria. Just 1 week ago, over 10,000 ISIS fighters, including high-value prisoners who targeted American victims, were secured in prisons throughout Northeast Syria. Today, we face a very different picture. Several ISIS prisons are already unmanned as a result of Turkey's incursion, and it's estimated that over 100 ISIS prisoners have been released already. We don't know what will happen in those other detention centers which have housed ISIS prisoners. 1 week ago, a limited U.S. troop presence of 1,000 special forces stabilized a population that was once terrorized by the Syrian regime and later by ISIS. These forces secured a region of Syria that controls over 2/3 of Syria's natural resources. And today, American troops have either left or are preparing to leave this area, and the Syrian regime is moving in. Russian troops have moved into U.S. military bases, and over 160,000 Syrian civilians have already fled their homes as a result of the spike in violence instigated by Turkey. And it is so hard to watch those videos on television that show Turkey-affiliated fighters assassinating Kurdish forces, Kurds with their hands tied behind their backs. I traveled to Syria a year ago last summer. Lindsey Graham and I saw firsthand the work of the Combined Joint Task Force, Operation Inherent Resolve. We saw the work its partner forces, the Syrian Democratic Forces, were doing, and it was truly remarkable. The United States owes a huge debt of gratitude to the men and women of the SDF who sacrificed over 11,000 of their own lives fighting ISIS so that we didn't have to sacrifice our own. And because of this sacrifice, when we were in Northeast Syria last summer, we witnessed communities like Manbij steadily recovering and rebuilding after 3 years under ISIS brutal occupation. And the widespread appreciation of the U.S. presence among local, multi-ethnic residents is a testament to the importance of our partnerships and our willingness to lead in times of crisis. You know, we saw, as we were driving down the road, we saw kids flashing victory signs at our troops. When we were in the marketplace, we had people coming out telling us how relieved they were that the United States was there helping to ensure that the peace was being kept. We saw local governance taking place on the ground. And it is incredibly difficult now to see images coming out of Manbij and those other places we visited in northeastern Syria. The Syrian regime has already moved troops back into this region, and Turkey's proxies, seemingly undeterred by the Syrian presence, continue to move into the city of Manbij with heavily armed vehicles. And meanwhile, Russia has spent the last few days touring and posting videos of abandoned taxpayer-funded U.S. bases. What's taking place in Manbij and so many cities across Northeast Syria is an insult to the thousands of American service members who risked their lives to help stabilize that region, to support the fight against ISIS, and it could have all been avoided. You know, this really began in December of 2018, when the president said he planned to withdraw troops from Syria. That's after holding up for months stabilization dollars that could have been used to make it very clear that we were committed to the region and to ensuring that ISIS didn't rebuild there and that there was stability in northeastern Syria, to make sure that the United States was at the table when Russia and Iran and Assad moved in and carved up Syria. Last month, the Bipartisan Syria Study Group, which I helped to create, issued recommendations on the best way forward in Syria. And, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to enter that document into the record.
Without objection.
The report said that the U.S. should make the most of its gains and hold this critical piece of land until a negotiated settlement is reached between all parties. Moreover, the report, which was bipartisan, that had representatives appointed by members of Congress, by the administration, it said that withdrawing U.S. troops would not make ISIS less likely to regroup or Iran less likely to entrench itself. Mr. President, President Trump's ill-informed and hasty decision will not only breathe new life into the terrorist groups, into ISIS, which is really just al-Qaeda by another name. It won't cede America's hard-fought gains in the region to Russia, Iran, and Assad. This decision will erode U.S. credibility in the long term. It will cede America's hard-fought gains in the region. I wish there were alternatives that we as a country could pursue. But sadly, I don't think we can put the genie back in the bottle. But here in Congress, I hope we will look at ways that we can hold Turkey and President Erdogan accountable for his actions. And I certainly hope that President Trump will revoke his invitation to President Erdogan to visit the United States. President Erdogan needs to hear an unequivocal message of opposition to this incursion from the United States, and it makes no sense to extend hospitality and niceties during this moment of crisis. Republicans and Democrats must come together and ensure that the administration understands the consequences of these actions. We have to do more to ensure that such mistakes never happen again. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.